Who among us ever thought that inconsistently with the principles underlying the Nuremberg trials and the rule of law, our president, who campaigned with the promise of fundamental change and who is supported, I would guess, by just about everybody here today, would continue to disregard not only our treaty obligations, but also our own nation's torture statute and the War Crimes Act, a statute passed by Congress to criminalize torture and other grave breaches of the Geneva Conventions. We are, of course, better off now than under the prior administration, no question about that. But we, the American people, all need to push, and that's what we're doing here today, is to push for far better from the administration and far better from our Congress. We were hoping for openness, a commitment to due process, application of equal justice, and adherence to the rule of law. Instead, the Obama administration, in the same manner as the Bush administration, has, through the assertion of the state secrets doctrine, deprived torture victims of their right to challenge in federal court the abuses from which they suffered. By doing so, the Obama administration, following the lead of the Bush administration, has essentially removed the courts as a co-equal branch of government essential to our system of checks and balances. That is particularly odious when the executive branch is preventing the courts from providing a check on abuses by the executive branch. The Obama administration has refused to disclose photographs evidencing outrages committed against detainees, photographs that, like the images of the Holocaust, would serve the purpose of acknowledging wrongdoing and preserving the memory of it so it will not happen again. The disclosure of those photographs would be an important signal to the world that the United States is now facing up to its prior outrages, and by doing so is committed to changing course. Instead, by refusing to disclose the photographs, the current administration is continuing the dangerous, undemocratic policy of hiding away the truth, of hiding away evidence of criminal wrongdoing, and signaling to the world that the cover-up of the truth will be continued. As the British High Court recently stated with respect to information about illegal torture or other abusive treatment of detainees, the provision of information of this kind, which enables public debate to take place and democratic accountability to be made more effective, is one of the bases upon which democracy rests. There can be no assurance that government is carried out for the people unless the facts are made known and the issues publicly ventilated. That was a statement by the British High Court referring to exactly what this administration is doing now by pushing to hide away the truth. The Obama administration, like the Bush administration, has asserted the right to detain people indefinitely without any proof of wrongdoing. It has resisted the call for a commission to investigate and disclose the truth about war crimes. And it has, shockingly, continued the Bush administration's cover-up by making threats against the British government to ensure that the United Kingdom's High Court does not disclose publicly a description of torture committed by United States agents. You won't read that in our local newspapers or hear it on our local television stations, most of whom didn't even bother to come here tonight. But here is what the British High Court had to say about the Obama administration's threats. Moreover, these are the words of the British High Court. Moreover, in the light of the long history of the common law and democracy which we share with the United States, it was, in our view, difficult to conceive that a democratically elected and accountable government could possibly have any rational objection to placing into the public domain such a summary of what its own officials reported as to how a detainee was treated by them, and which made no disclosure of sensitive intelligence matters. Indeed, we did not consider that a democracy governed by the rule of law would expect a court in another democracy to suppress a summary of the evidence contained in reports by its own officials or officials of another state, where the evidence was relevant to allegations of torture and cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment, politically embarrassing though it might be. Those were the words of the British High Court about the Obama administration's efforts to keep the truth away from the public. Many of us thought all of this would change with the new administration, but it has not. Avoidance of accountability, denials of equal justice, further erosion of the rule of law, and cover-up have continued to prevail as our nation's policy. And it will continue into the future unless we, the American people, demand better. That's why we are gathered here today. And congratulations to all of you who are calling for full disclosure, a full investigation, and accountability. As Americans who are committed to the rule of law and equal justice, we know that as Supreme Court Justice Louis Brandeis said, sunlight is the best disinfectant. We don't face up to our nation's wrongdoing, and we do not deter similar misconduct in the future by hiding away the evidence, by covering up the truth, or by denying justice to those who were harmed. Yet that is exactly what the present administration is endeavoring to do, purportedly for the sake of moving forward. We can only move forward as a nation that adheres to the rule of law, to our treaty obligations, and to federal law, if we insist on accountability for the people who violated those laws and a full investigation and disclosure of the truth, with reforms enacted by Congress to ensure that similar abuses are never again allowed in the name of our nation. It was a glorious time for our democracy, for openness in government, and for major reform when the Church Committee undertook a comprehensive investigation of abuses by the U.S. intelligence community during the 1950s and 60s and disclosed those abuses to the American people with an eye toward reforms and future deterrence. We now have a similar opportunity for openness to prevail over secrecy and cover-up, for the truth to prevail over lies and obfuscations, for governmental reforms and deterrence of future atrocities to prevail over condoning past outrages by hiding the truth and foregoing reforms. Cognizant of all that lies in the balance, let us be persistent in calling for the appointment of a select congressional committee, like the Church Committee, or an independent commission, like the Iraq Study Group, for the investigation and disclosure of the truth about war crimes. During prior demonstrations here and at Pioneer Park, times that President Bush visited Salt Lake City 3 years running, when thousands of people from the Salt Lake City area came here together and shouted out to the Bush administration and to the complicit mainstream media, "Give us the truth." Do you remember us chanting, "Give us the truth"? Well, we're here again today, no less impassioned, demanding the truth. Demanding accountability, demanding a recommitment to the rule of law and equal justice, and demanding that steps be taken to ensure that our nation will never again be dragged into the moral sewer of crimes against peace, war crimes, and the deceit, arrogance, and undemocratic abandonment of accountability, truth-telling, and reform. So let us be persistent.
Damn it.
Let us never let down in showing the world, in showing our children, in showing ourselves that we are not the kind of nation and we are not the kind of people who will countenance torture and other war crimes, and that at this vital time we will remain steadfast as we stand united for the rule of law, for the values of our Constitution, for compliance with our solemn treaty obligations, and for principled accountability. Thank you.